Imagine this. You help a neighbor out thinking it's just a small favor. No harm, right? But then your internet slows to a crawl, strange devices appear on your network, and before you know it, you're locked out of your own router. That's when it hits you, Karen isn't just using your Wi-Fi. She's trying to take control of it. And what happened next? Let's just say she never saw it coming. It all started with one simple request. Karen had just moved in next door, middle-aged, overly friendly, and way too nosy for someone I barely knew. She introduced herself with a politician's smile, acting like the self-appointed queen of the neighborhood. Within a day, she had already come knocking, asking for a small kindness. Her words, not mine. My internet provider's delayed. I've got work meetings and my son's doing school online. Could we maybe just jump on your Wi-Fi until ours kicks in? She said, batting her eyes like I was her long-lost savior. It felt like the polite thing to do. I mean, how long could it really be? A couple of days. So I gave her my guest network, password and all. I didn't think much of it until weeks passed, and she never mentioned her internet again. No provider vans ever parked out front, no new network popped up in the Wi-Fi list. Nothing but Karen. She was online, all the time. Streaming late into the night, blasting music from her son's PlayStation, and even asking me if I could make my signal a little stronger because her bedroom was in a dead zone. That should have been the first red flag, but I didn't want conflict. I thought, naively, that maybe she just forgot to cancel her setup or got too comfortable, and then it got worse. Random slowdowns started happening on my end. I'm talking videos buffering, video calls freezing, and sometimes my own devices getting kicked off my own network. When I checked the router dashboard one night, there were at least 9 devices connected that weren't mine. Karen had turned my Wi-Fi into her personal family plan. Her kid's Xbox, her laptop, a smart TV, her phone, and a bunch of mystery devices I didn't even recognize. One of them was just labeled Karen's iPad, do not kick off. She literally named it like a warning to me. That night, I walked next door. She opened the door in her robe, sipping wine like it was a Sunday brunch. Hey, Karen. I noticed a ton of devices on my network and I'm starting to get lag on my end. Do you mind if I ask, have you guys gotten your own internet yet? She didn't even blink. Oh no, we decided to just stick with yours. It's working great. Like she just announced she was borrowing my car forever. I kept it civil. I told her I was planning to change my password and tighten up security. I figured that was the cleanest way to cut it off without a fight, but she got offended. Offended? You said it was fine, she snapped. I told my son he could game again. If you knew we'd be cut off, you should have warned me. Karen was treating it like I had canceled her Netflix mid-episode. The next day, I changed the password. Then came the real storm. That night, my phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. Hey, it's Karen. The Wi-Fi's not working. Can you fix it? Brad's in the middle of a game. I ignored it. 2 hours later, she knocked, loud, non-stop. When I finally opened, she was holding her phone already mid-rant. You changed it without telling me. You can't do that, we need that internet. It's not just for fun, it's essential. My son's school depends on it. You want him to fail. I stood there stunned. Karen, I never agreed to let you use my Wi-Fi forever. It was supposed to be temporary. But we're neighbors, she snapped. Good neighbors help each other. This is incredibly selfish. That was when it all flipped. She stormed off, but she wasn't done. Not even close. The next day, I found a handwritten letter taped to my door. It's sad to see the neighborhood spirit dying. In times like these, we should be building bridges, not burning them. I expected more from you. I crumpled it up and tossed it, but she kept going. She started a rumor campaign. At the HOA meeting later that week, people were giving me strange looks. One older lady even said, I heard you cut Karen off cold while her son was taking a test. That's really low. Karen had spun a full sob story around the neighborhood about how I'd abandoned a child's education. But the thing is, I was still watching the router, and that's when things got weird. One device never disconnected, even after I changed the password. I ran a security sweep and sure enough, someone was using my Wi-Fi again. They'd somehow bypassed the new password. That night, I did a deep dive into my router logs. There it was, activity from an IP address that was way too close for comfort. It wasn't mine, but it was next door. It was Karen. Somehow, she'd found a way back in. I checked my settings and saw it. A backdoor login had been created. Someone had set up remote access to my router without my knowledge, and that's when I realized I wasn't just being mooched off anymore. I was being hacked. But I wasn't about to let her win. If she wanted to play dirty, I could play smarter. I took a deep breath, set up a honeypot network, basically a fake Wi-Fi with open access that logs everything. Then I set a trap. I renamed it Free Wi-Fi X and waited. 10 minutes later, I watched as Karen's devices started connecting. Her phone, her son's gaming console, a laptop, and a tablet, and then activity. She was back online. But what she didn't know was I was logging every move, every page visited, every timestamp. Not to spy, but to protect myself. Because something told me this wasn't going to stop here, and I was right, because the next morning, Karen called the police on me, and that's where the real madness began. I'll admit I should have shut her down the moment she asked, but I didn't. After that first day when she knocked on my door with her innocent request, Karen started popping over more frequently. At first, it was just to ask little things. Is your signal still strong? Or is it normal for the internet to slow down around dinner time? Stuff like that. I should have taken the hint when she started referring to it as our internet. Still, I didn't see the harm. I live alone, I've got unlimited data, and the signal reached her place just fine. I figured if it helped keep the peace, why not? She said it was temporary anyway, just until she sorted out her billing issues. But as the weeks passed, temporary started looking a whole lot like permanent, and then the weird stuff began. It started small. One day, I tried streaming a movie and my Wi-Fi was crawling. I logged into the router's control panel and saw 10 devices connected. I only own 3. I removed the unknown devices and changed the password. Not 5 minutes later, there was a knock at the door. Guess who? Karen stood on my porch like I just committed a felony. Hey, did the Wi-Fi go down? She asked, arms folded. No, I replied. I had to change the password. Too many unknown devices were connected. She squinted at me like I just insulted her personally. Unknown. My son connects his phone and Xbox too, and I think his friend was using it the other night. What's the big deal? The big deal, I said calmly, is that this is my network, and I never agreed to provide internet for your son and his friends. She huffed. I just think it's a little rude to cut someone off without warning, especially when they've been depending on it. I didn't say it out loud, but she sounded like I'd taken away a public utility, not revoked a free favor. I held my ground. Karen, you said this was temporary. It's been months. I didn't realize there was a deadline, she snapped. There it was, the entitlement starting to show. I should have told her to never come back. Instead, I gave her the new password but made it clear. This is the last time. If I see anything shady or if the network gets overloaded again, I'm cutting it off for good. Karen forced a tight smile, said thanks, and left without another word. For a couple of days, things were fine. The internet worked, no random devices, no complaints. I figured maybe she got the message, but then something happened that made my skin crawl. I was working from home on a Zoom call with a client when the connection dropped, mid-sentence. Embarrassed, I scrambled to reconnect. The Wi-Fi was gone. I checked my phone. No network available. I rushed over to the router and it was off. Now, I never turn off my router. It's mounted up high in my home office and I live alone. No one else touches it. I turned it back on and waited. Nothing. I pulled out the backup laptop and checked the network panel. That's when I saw it. The network name had been changed. Before, it was just a default Linksys 5G. Now, it was renamed KarenNet. KarenNet. I felt the blood drain from my face. I went back into the router settings and sure enough, someone had logged in and changed everything. The name, the password, even the admin credentials. My own Wi-Fi was locked out and renamed after her. It took me a few hours and a full factory reset, but I got everything back. I updated the firmware, changed the admin panel access, and set the most complicated password I could come up with. I locked that thing down so tight, not even the FBI could get in. Once I was back online, I sat there seething. Not only had she disrespected my boundaries, she actually tried to take over my entire network, and I wasn't even sure how. There were only 2 ways to do it. Either she guessed my admin credentials, or she physically accessed the router. That's when I remembered. I left my window open the day before, the office window, the one just below the mounted router shelf, and Karen. She has a teenage son with no boundaries and no sense of privacy. That night, I installed a security camera facing the side of my house, just in case. And just like clockwork, the next day something else happened. I came home from work and found a sticky note on my front door. It read, "I don't appreciate being excluded from something I rely on. Fix IT. K. No hello. No apology. Just a demand." I took the note, walked straight to my trash can and tossed it in. But something told me this wasn't the end, and I was right. That weekend, I got a call from my internet provider. "Hi," the rep said. "We just received a transfer request for your internet service. Are you moving?" I blinked. "No. Why?" "Well, someone requested your service be transferred to another name and account holder at the same address." I almost dropped my phone. "Who was the name on the request?" The rep hesitated. "Karen, last name. Do you know her?" I nearly laughed. "Yeah, she's my neighbor." And no, I absolutely did not approve any transfer. That's fraud. The rep confirmed they'd canceled the request immediately and flagged the account. I thanked her and hung up, now fuming. She wasn't just stealing anymore. She was trying to hijack my internet plan, under my name, using my address. It was time to end this. I walked over to her house, rang the doorbell, and waited. When she opened the door, she didn't even pretend to be surprised. Just stared at me like I was wasting her time. "You really thought you could transfer my internet account without me knowing?" I said, deadpan. Karen crossed her arms. "I was just trying to help. Your service is always going down. I figured I'd take it over and improve it." "Take it over," I said. "You mean hijack it?" "It's not hijacking if it's already shared," she replied, as if that made any kind of sense. I held up my phone, showing the cancellation notice from my provider. "They know. I reported the fraud. If you ever try that again, I'll escalate it legally." Karen's face twitched. She looked like she wanted to say something clever, but instead she slammed the door in my face. I stood there for a second, stunned. But the story didn't end there, because later that night, something happened that made it all 10 times worse. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more wild, real-life HOA drama, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Every new subscriber keeps me motivated to dig deeper, write more, and bring you even crazier stories. Your support means the world. It's what keeps this channel going strong. So stick around, because we've got way more chaos coming your way. That night, just past midnight, my phone buzzed. I groggily reached for it, expecting some random notification, but it was a motion alert from the security camera I'd installed days earlier. I opened the app and froze. There, on the screen, was a grainy but clear shot of someone creeping along the side of my house, right under my office window. It wasn't the sun. It was Karen, wearing dark clothes, no shoes, and carrying what looked like a small step stool. She looked both frantic and weirdly focused, like someone who thought breaking into someone's property wasn't a crime as long as they meant well. I immediately sat up, heart pounding. She placed the stool under the window and stood up on it, clearly trying to peer inside. For a second, I thought she might be trying to reach the router again. That's when I turned on the outside floodlight. She flinched like a raccoon caught in a trash can, our eyes locked through the glass. She didn't move. She didn't run. She just stood there, blinking like I was the problem. I stormed outside and opened the door. "Are you serious right now?" Karen stepped off the stool, trying to play it cool. "I was just checking to make sure your setup was okay. You said something about outages." "No, I didn't," I snapped. "And you are on my property at midnight with a stool by my office window." She opened her mouth to argue, but I pulled out my phone and held up the security footage. She shut up real quick. "You need to leave now," I said. Karen hesitated for a moment, then huffed like I was the unreasonable one. She turned and walked away, muttering something about how people these days don't appreciate kindness. The next morning, I reported the trespassing to the police, not pressing charges yet, but I wanted it documented. I also emailed the video to myself, backed it up to 2 cloud drives, and stored it on a USB, just in case, because something told me Karen wasn't done, and I was right. The following day, I found a flyer taped to my mailbox, not in an envelope, taped. It read, "Neighborhood alert. Tech-savvy tenant monitoring everyone's internet activity. Your data may be at risk." It had my house number printed right at the top. Not my name, but enough to point fingers. She was trying to flip the narrative. To everyone else, she wasn't the problem. According to this joke of a flyer, I was the neighborhood hacker, snooping on people's data, monitoring their digital lives, and causing emotional distress. It would have been funny if it wasn't so dangerous. That kind of lie spreads fast in neighborhoods like mine, tight-knit, mostly older residents, many of whom still think Wi-Fi is the name of a new disease. Later that evening, I was in my front yard fixing a sprinkler head when one of my neighbors, Margaret, sweet lady in her 70s, walked by and gave me a weird look. "Everything okay, dear?" she asked, but her tone was off. "Yeah, just doing some yard work," I replied casually. She nodded slowly, then said, "Just be careful with all that internet stuff, okay? People are talking." There it was, I sighed. "Margaret, did Karen give you one of those flyers?" Her lips pursed. "Well, she said you were watching people. That you had some sort of equipment set up to spy on everyone." I had to take a second to stop myself from laughing. "Margaret," I said, "I set up one camera facing my house because someone was sneaking around my property." She looked taken aback. "Oh. And the only equipment I have is a regular router and a computer, for work." "Oh," she said again, a bit embarrassed. "Well, I guess I didn't get the whole story." "Nope," I said, "you definitely didn't." Margaret apologized and walked off, but I could tell the seed of suspicion had been planted. Karen was playing the long game now, spreading rumors to turn the neighborhood against me. But here's where things really took a turn. 2 days later, I got a knock on my door. It was my internet provider again, this time in person. A technician in a branded uniform stood there, tablet in hand. "Hi, sir. I'm here to install a service transfer requested for this address." I blinked. "Wait again," he nodded. Yes, it was escalated this time. Apparently, the account holder insisted the last transfer was canceled by mistake. "Who was the name on the new request?" I asked, already knowing Karen's last name. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because I couldn't believe the audacity. "She doesn't live here," I said firmly. "She's my neighbor, and this is my account. My name's on the deed, the utility bill, everything." He checked his tablet again, then nodded. "Understood. I'll escalate this and mark it as fraud." Before he left, I asked him to do me one more favor. Change my account's name to something anonymous, just initials, and flag it with an alert so no one could ever attempt a transfer again without me present in person. He agreed. But I wasn't done. That night, I posted on the neighborhood forum. Yes, the same one Karen had used to spread rumors. I didn't attack her directly, but I laid out the facts. Someone had been accessing my Wi-Fi without permission. That person then tried to rename my network and lock me out. After I cut off access, someone attempted to fraudulently transfer my service twice. There was security footage of a late-night trespassing incident. And finally, a flyer was distributed with false, defamatory claims. I ended the post with a polite but firm line. "I will no longer tolerate harassment, digital theft, or character assassination. Consider this your notice." That post got dozens of comments. People I barely knew were messaging me, saying they had no idea that they believed me, that Karen had pulled weird stuff in the past too. I didn't even know half of it until then. Apparently, she once tried to charge neighbors $10 a month to use her garden hose. One neighbor even said Karen told them she ran the internet for the block. Whatever that means. By the next day, the tide had turned. Karen went silent, but the damage she caused, that was already done. And just when I thought the drama had finally cooled off, a city inspector showed up at my door. So there I was, standing at my front door, facing a city inspector holding a clipboard. "Are you the owner of this property?" he asked. "Yes," I replied, trying not to sound annoyed. "What's this about?" "We received an anonymous complaint about an unlicensed wireless signal booster being operated on the premises. I need to take a look around." I blinked. "A what?" "A signal booster. Apparently, it's interfering with the neighborhood's connectivity. The report says it's an illegal install." Now I was mad. I didn't have any booster. Nothing out of the ordinary, just a normal router. But I didn't need 3 guesses to figure out who had filed that anonymous complaint. I stepped aside. "Go ahead, check whatever you need to." He did, checked inside, walked around my yard. Even looked in the garage. When he was done, he scratched the back of his neck and said, "Yeah, there's nothing here. Everything looks up to code. Seems like a bogus report." I forced a smile. "Appreciate you checking." He nodded, paused, then said, "Not your first complaint, is it?" "Definitely not." As he left, I could see Karen peeking from behind her curtains. I stared back, arms crossed, until the blinds snapped shut. That's when I knew Karen wasn't just angry. She was obsessed, and I had to shut her down for good. I reached out to an attorney. I explained everything. The Wi-Fi theft, the fake service transfer, the trespassing, the false rumors, the flyers, and now the false complaint to the city. I showed the security footage, the router logs, even the screenshots from the neighborhood forum. The attorney just nodded, calm and professional. This isn't just harassment, he said. It's targeted. You've got a solid case for a cease and desist, possibly even civil damages if it escalates. That was the moment it clicked for me. Karen wasn't just a nuisance, she was breaking laws. And it was time she got hit with consequences that actually stuck. He drafted a formal cease and desist letter. We had it delivered directly to her mailbox, certified. And I made sure to post a copy to the neighborhood forum, publicly, with no names but with clear reference to the ongoing behavior. It hit like a bomb. People started talking. Neighbors began comparing notes. Turns out I wasn't the only one Karen had messed with. Someone said she reported their dog for barking in a suspicious tone. Another said she once claimed their Christmas lights interfered with her spiritual frequency. Suddenly, I wasn't the villain in Karen's fantasy anymore. She was. Still, she wasn't done. 3 days after the cease and desist was delivered, I got a notification that someone was trying to access my router settings. Again. This time, it was from a smartphone connected to an open hotspot Karen must have set up nearby. She was trying to brute force her way back into my network. But here's the thing, after everything, I'd locked it down tighter than Fort Knox. She got nowhere. So what did she do? She called the internet company and tried to report me for hacking her account. I only found out because I got a call from the provider's fraud department. Sir, we just wanted to confirm. You haven't attempted to gain access to a neighbor's Wi-Fi or make any changes to their equipment. I nearly dropped my phone. No, I said firmly, but I have plenty of evidence that someone's been doing that to me. And it's the same person who tried to fraudulently transfer my service to her name twice, the rep sighed. That's what we figured. Her story didn't check out. Good, I said, because this is beyond ridiculous. The rep paused. You're not the first person to have issues with her, by the way. You didn't hear it from me. Click. Another nail in her digital coffin. But I still wasn't satisfied. I wanted Karen to understand that some lines you don't cross. So I put together a USB drive. All the router logs, all the footage, all the call recordings, the fraud report from the ISP, and a copy of the cease and desist. I addressed it to her, left it in her mailbox. No message. Just a black flash drive in a small envelope. A warning shot. Later that evening, I saw her standing in her driveway, the envelope in her hand, just staring at it. She looked rattled. And for the first time ever, she looked nervous. She didn't say a word. She didn't come near my property. She didn't touch her flyers, her little fake petition, or even log into my network again. She stayed inside. But I knew her well enough to know it wasn't over yet. The quiet lasted about a week. Then on a Friday night while I was working late, I heard shouting outside. Not from Karen. From her son. And this time, he wasn't defending her. Karen's son, Jordan, was standing in their driveway, yelling loud enough for the whole block to hear. I told you this was going to blow up in your face. Karen's voice shot back through an open window, shrill and defensive. You have no idea what you're talking about. He's manipulating everyone. Jordan pointed toward my house, then toward the neighborhood. No, you are. You tried to steal his internet, lie to the provider, and now the HOA thinks we're criminals. I watched from my porch in silence, arms crossed. They kept going back and forth, Karen insisting she was the victim, Jordan shouting about how fed up he was with her dragging the family into disaster after disaster. It wasn't just about me anymore. Apparently, my Wi-Fi wasn't her first stunt. She'd been reported for snooping in neighbors' trash cans, spying with binoculars, and filing noise complaints for dogs barking during the day. Jordan finally stormed out, backpack in hand, got into an old Civic, and peeled off down the street. And just like that, Karen was left standing in her doorway, alone. That night, I finally slept without checking my router logs every hour. But the peace didn't last. 2 days later, a police cruiser pulled up in front of my house again. I sighed and grabbed my phone, already guessing where this was going. Officer, sir, we've had a report that you were accessing someone's private data without consent. I almost laughed. Let me guess. Karen, the officer gave a tired nod. I invited him inside, handed over my USB drive of evidence, and walked him through everything. Again, the password theft, the service transfer attempts, the ISP call, the city complaint, and now the baseless police report. He didn't even finish watching it all before shaking his head. "She's weaponizing law enforcement," he muttered. "This is getting out of hand." I asked what could be done. He said there was a process, and if she filed one more false report, I could press charges for harassment. So I waited, and Karen, being Karen, couldn't help herself. 3 days later, I got a knock from animal control. "Ma'am, next door says you have 3 unlicensed pets." I had 0 pets. The agent apologized once I showed him my empty backyard and no signs of any animals. That was the final straw. I filed a harassment complaint with the local police department and submitted everything: the videos, the audio, the notes, the ISP statement, the city inspector's findings, even the animal control visit. It took them less than 48 hours to act. Karen got a knock on her door this time. I stood across the street, watching from a distance as the officer handed her a citation for harassment and misuse of public services. Her voice cracked as she tried to argue her way out of it. Didn't work. That same day, a letter went out to the entire neighborhood from the HOA president. It started like this: "We are aware of multiple reports involving a resident misusing HOA resources, targeting neighbors, and filing false complaints. This behavior is not acceptable and reflects poorly on our entire community." They didn't name her. They didn't have to. Everyone knew. By the next week, her garden flags came down. The passive-aggressive Community Watch sign in her window disappeared. Her Facebook group got archived. The same people who used to buy into her drama stopped returning her calls, stopped answering the door. Karen was officially radioactive. But she still had one more surprise. Late one night, just past 11 p.m., my phone buzzed with a motion alert from my front door camera. I opened the app and froze. There she was, Karen, standing on my porch in a robe and slippers, hair a mess, holding a sheet of paper. She looked exhausted. Hollow, I watched as she slipped the paper under my door and left without a word. I waited a few minutes, then opened it. It was a handwritten letter. I was wrong. I don't know why I kept pushing. I think I was angry and I didn't want to admit I'd gone too far. "My son won't talk to me. My neighbors hate me and it's my fault. You didn't deserve any of this. I'm sorry." No threats, no blame, just regret. I stood there in silence, staring at the letter. I didn't know what to feel. After everything, part of me wanted to rip it up. Another part just felt sorry for her. But I didn't respond. I wasn't going to be her redemption arc. Instead, I focused on moving forward. Karen sold her house a month later. The for sale sign popped up one morning, and by the end of the week, a moving truck was parked out front. I never saw her outside again. And then, just like that, she was gone. A new couple moved in. Quiet, respectful, friendly. They brought cookies to introduce themselves, and most importantly, they have their own Wi-Fi. Karen thought she could take advantage of my kindness. She thought letting her use my Wi-Fi meant she could control it, control me. But the moment I drew a line, she turned it into a war. All because of internet access she never paid for in the first place. The irony. If she had just asked for help paying for her own service, I probably would have offered. But entitlement never knows when to stop. And when you let it linger, it doesn't just take, it invades. She tried to hijack my router, my privacy, my sanity. But in the end, all she did was unplug herself from the entire neighborhood.